Hello, everybody. My name is Banganti Manasibego. I'm going to be teaching human reproduction on life sciences, grade 12. Guys, today I just want us to look at this because I think it's very important since you're going to be tested on this in metric, and it's very important that you know these things. Now, I have a lesson plan or a lesson description, or what I can call something that you're going to look at, you know. So we're going to look at what is reproduction or what is human reproduction. And then we're going to look at male reproductive system, its role and what does it consist of. And then we're going to look at the structure of the sperm cell. And then we're going to look at the female reproductive system, its role and what does it consist of. And then we're going to look at the structure of the ovary. And lastly, but not least, we're going to look at what is puberty. Now, you need to understand, as I've discussed on my lesson plan, that what is reproduction or what is human reproduction. So this is actually a process in which or whereby two parent organisms of the same species, they reproduce sexually to create a new offspring or baby or a living organism of that species to prevent extinction. What is extinction? Is the total disappearance of a particular species. Now, human reproduction is divided into two parts. In my lesson, I'm going to divide it into two parts. We have got the male reproductive system or the male reproductive organs, and then we have the female reproductive system or the male reproductive organs. Now, you need to know and understand why do we have the male reproductive system. It's not there in your body for decoration. It has a very important function in life. Now, the very important role that the male reproductive system plays is to produce sperm cells through a process called spermatogenesis. So sperm, it's sperm cells. Genesis means the formation of something or the creation of something. Now, another role of the reproductive system is to what? To deliver sperm cells into the female body for fertilization to take place. As you all know, fertilization is whereby two gametes fuse to form what we call a zygote. Okay, we're gonna discuss that later, I think, on my other slides. Today, we're just gonna focus on the male and the female reproductive organs or structures or system. And then you need to understand also, what does the reproductive system of a male consist of? It consists of what we call the testes, it consists of what we call the sperm ducts, it consists of what we call the glands or the accessory glands. It also consists of what the external genitalia, which is the penis. Now, on our screen, what we are seeing at this moment is two views of the male reproductive system and their labels. Now, in the exam, you might be given the side view or the front view. This one here is what we call the side view. And then this one here is what we call the front view. So it's very important as a matriculant or as a life sciences student to be able to label both structures because it can be tested on one of the two. Now, as you can see on your left, there is a side view. On that side view, you see there are some structures there, but some of them they're not that important, but you should know them because you know some examiners, like, they're very tricky. They can try to confuse you, but I believe you that if you study properly, you won't be confused. This is a very important and a very easy chapter to know because you will be tested on reproduction. It's just that we don't know which part of reproduction. Now, looking at your side view, you can see a ureter there, you might not be asked about that, but you need to know it in case. There's what we call the seminal vesicles, which is a very important gland that you should know. We have got a urinary bladder, which is also a very important structure that you should know. But in this case, you're not going to go to it because it's a reproduction. It's not, we're not looking at the renal system or the kidneys and what we call the excretory system. We're not doing that today. We're doing reproduction. And then there's what we call the vas deferens, which is a very important structure as well that you need to know. And then we've got the prostate here. It's this part here. It's also called the prostate gland. The prostate gland is also a very important gland because it produces a certain fluid that is very important. And then we have got what? We've got the penis, which is the external genitalia or the external private part, which is very important as well. And then we've got what? The urethra. It's a pathway through which your semen passes through and where your urine passes through when you urinate. And then we have got the glans penis, which is the tip of the penis, which is a very sensitive part. And then we've got this part that covers that sensitive part there at the tip of the penis, what we call the foreskin. Now we also got what we call a scrotum. This is actually a skin or a certain structure that protects your testes or your testicles or what we call your balls. But in life sciences, please guys, be very careful. Do not call them balls. That's not a scientific term. When you say balls, you can think of so many balls. Be very specific. Just say testes or testicles. Now, these testicles, they're covered by this structure here. It's skin-like structure, which protects the testes, and it's very important. I'll just share its role. And then below, guys, there, below your prostate gland there, you can see a very small gland there. It's a very important gland. Do not look at this name there because it's a very difficult name. It's what we call a corpus gland, which also produces a very certain fluid, which is very important. And then you've got your anus there, but you're not doing the digestive system, so it's not important at this moment. You have the rectum there, it's not important. And then the ejaculatory duct, it's also not important. You won't be tested on that. What you're supposed to know, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to show you the functions of each part of the male reproductive system that you're supposed to know by heart and know their functions. It's very easy, guys. It's not very complicated. And then now, looking at them front view, it's also easy to label the front view. It's the same thing as the side view, but now it's just that it's a different view, but the same labels that we had, they're there. Now, what is different is that, you know, in both structures, they haven't labeled, actually, on your side view, they haven't labeled this part there on top of the testes. That part is what we call the epididymis. They haven't labeled it on your side view, but on our front view, they have labeled this structure. It's a very important structure. It has a very important function, you know. And then now looking at the front view, you can see here, this pathway here, this is what we call the urethra, where the sperm cells or semen passes through, and also the urine. And then we also have this part here, or this part here, it's the same part, the testes. And then you've got this part, the entire part here is what we call the penis, which is the external private part of a male. And then we have got the prostate below what? Below your urinary bladder. This is your prostate here. This is a prostate gland, which is very important. It produces an alkaline fluid, which actually neutralizes the environment inside the vagina since it is very acidic. So this alkaline fluid, it helps and protects the sperm from dying, you know. And also we have these small structures below. There are two. We have two of them. These structures below the prostate. These structures are what we call the corpus glands. They're very important because they produce mucus, which is very important for the movement of the sperm. It makes the sperm to be able to flow freely and nicely so and smoothly so. And then what else do we have? Oh, we have the vas deferens here, this tube here, which goes into the epididymis. This tube is what we call the vas deferens or the sperm duct. It's very important because it transports your sperm cells from your epididymis into your urethra, and then your urethra takes over and then it takes it outside the body. Now, also, the very important thing that you need to know is the tip of the penis, guys. Don't forget that part. It's what we call the glans penis. And this glans penis, it's very, very sensitive. And then it is covered by a certain skin, which we call the foreskin. Sometimes people who go to initiation school, they remove the skin. They remove. And according to a recent study, it is believed that when you remove the foreskin, you increase the chances of not getting infected with HIV by 60%. And others, they don't only cut it out simply because they want to prevent themselves from getting HIV, but some they do it for hygienic reasons because, you know, this skin here, it traps bacteria which they're not good, they can cause what we call inflammation, which is not important. They can cause an infection, but you're not supposed to know that now. And then some of them, they do it for religious reasons. Now, moving forward on our next slide. Okay, our next slide shows you the functions of the parts of the male reproductive systems. The testes, which I've just shown you, they produce sperm cells and the hormone called testosterone, which is something that we're going to discuss as we move, but not on our very same slide that I'm busy with right now. And then we have got what we call the epididymis. The epididymis is very important because it is where sperm mature, or where the sperm gets mature, or it's important for sperm cell maturation and also for storage. That is where your sperm cells, they're stored until they become mature. Sorry. And then we have got the sperm duct or the vas deferens. It's also a very important structure. What does it do? It transports your sperm cells from your epididymis after maturation to the urethra. And then you've got your prostate gland, which produces an alkaline fluid that neutralizes the acids produced in the vagina to protect the sperm from dying. You know, the environment of the vagina or inside the vagina, it is so acidic. So we need this alkaline fluid, which is going to neutralize what the acidic environment in the vagina to protect what the sperm cell, because the acid is very strong for your sperm. It is able to kill your sperm. So we need to make sure that area is neutralized. Okay. Now, moving forward, we have got the seminal vesicle or the seminal gland. Those ones, they're also very important because they produce a nutrient-rich fluid that gives the sperm cells energy for movement. They need energy for movement so it stays moving, you know. And then we've got the corpus gland. The corpus gland is very important as well because it produces mucus or a sticky or a slippery fluid or substance that helps it with the movement. You know, it makes the sperm to move freely and nicely so. And then we've got the urethra. The urethra is also very important because it transports your semen and the urine out of the body. Okay, I'm going to explain to you what is semen because people, they confuse the two. There's a difference between the semen and the sperm cells or sperm. Now, looking at the scrotum, it protects the testes and it holds the testes outside at a temperature below 37 degrees Celsius. And to be specific, that particular temperature is supposed to be 35 degrees Celsius. You know, sperm production, it does not require a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius or the normal body temperature. It needs at least a temperature that is 2 degrees Celsius below the normal body temperature. It's supposed to be 35 degrees Celsius. So this scrotum, it helps to keep your testicles outside your body, since your body has got a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. So it's supposed to go out because your sperm production, it requires a temperature of 35 degrees Celsius. Now, I told you I'm going to just explain the difference between what? Sperm and semen. Semen is actually how can I say it? It is a fluid that contains your sperm cells and other substances like the alkaline fluid, your mucus, and your nutrient-rich fluid. That's it. Your sperm cells, they are contained inside the semen. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say here. It contains your sperm cells. It's a fluid that contains your sperm cells. So as your sperm cells move through all these tubes, or all these pathways, your vas deferens, it goes and goes, and then it goes, and then in the prostate gland, it gets what? It gets the alkaline fluid substance. It gets mixed with the alkaline fluid substance. And then the seminal vesicles, they secrete the nutrient-rich fluid. It mixes with the sperm cells. And then your corpus gland, it mixes them up with mucus. That all in all, we call it the semen. So semen contains your sperm cells or your spermatozoa. Okay, now moving forward, we're going to look at the structure of the sperm cell. Guys, this is very important to know because you might be asked to draw it or to label it. So it's very important for you guys to know how to draw the structure. It looks like, how can I say, it looks like a snake. It has the head, it has the neck, it has the tail or the middle body. Yes. Now the head, as you can see, it's the biggest part, followed by your what? Followed by this part here. This part here is what we call your body or your middle section. This is the neck. Here until here, it's what we call the body or the middle section. And then this is what we call the tail, the entire. It looks like a tail. So it is a tail. Now, the head of the sperm cell, it consists of some particular structures which you're supposed to know. It consists of what we call the nucleus, which contains 23 chromosomes, not 46 guys. This is a male gamete or a male sex cell, which is the sperm cell. So it contains 23 chromosomes. Remember, I'm going to explain this also. A zygote is supposed to consist of 23 chromosomes, not pair, sorry, 23 chromosomes from the male and 23 chromosomes from the mother, and then they join or they fuse to form 46. So 23 comes from the mother, 23 comes from the father. They form the baby. So that's why it's very important for a woman and a man to make the baby. Now, because they need each other, hey? You can't make a baby alone because you produce only 23 chromosomes for the baby. The other person produces 23 chromosomes for the baby, and then you form one baby. So sometimes 1 plus 1 doesn't mean it's 2. 1 plus 1 can be 2 sometimes. You can combine but form one child. Now, the middle piece here, the middle part, the middle section of the body, the middle body, it's what we call, it contains what we call a mitochondria. Guys, you did what? You did cells. You did eukaryotic cells and the prokaryotic cells. You need to understand what is a mitochondria. A mitochondria, it is the powerhouse of a cell. So this is a sperm cell. So it has the powerhouse. This powerhouse is responsible for providing energy for the sperm for movement. In order for the sperm to move, it needs energy. So that energy is produced where? In the mitochondria. Now, the tail, this tail is important for movement. It makes the sperm to swim. And then What I have forgotten to explain to you guys is the tip of the head here. This tip of the head here is what we call the acrosome. This acrosome, it contains particular enzymes that are important for digesting the wall of an egg cell for fertilization to occur. Or in simple terms, this acrosome, it contains enzymes that make it to be able to penetrate into the egg cell for fertilization to occur. Since the egg and the sperm, they need to fuse together. So the sperm gets into what? It gets into the egg cell through this head or this tip here, which is what we call the acrosome, which contains particular enzymes. We did enzymes, guys. These enzymes, they do what? They penetrate. They make it possible for this part to penetrate the egg cell. Now, moving forward. Now, looking at the female reproductive system, we're going to look at its role and what does it consist of. Now, looking at the role, why do we need it? Why is it important? What functions does it do? So the role of the female reproductive system is to produce an ovum through a process called oogenesis, which I'm gonna explain, not now, not today, not on this slide, next time. Now, it is the location where fertilization takes place. You know, for fertilization to take place, it must be in a particular environment or it must be in a particular place so that it takes place. So that's in the woman's reproductive system. Now, it is also responsible for carrying the unborn baby during pregnancy. For a child to grow properly, the child needs the female reproductive system. Now, what does the female reproductive system consist of? It consists of two structures, which we call them ovaries. It consists of what? Two structures as well, two tubes. They are called the fallopian tubes or the oviduct. And then it consists of a very important structure, which is a uterus. A uterus is very important because that's where implantation occurs and that's where the baby grows until they are born. And then we've got the cervix. The cervix, it's like the neck of the vagina, but it's like what can I say? The doorway into the uterus. Yes, it's the doorway into the uterus. And then we've got the vagina, which you all know, and then we've got the external genitalia, which is we usually call it the vulva. Now, let's look at the two different views of the female reproductive system. We have got the side view and the front view. Guys, it's very important to know how to label these structures because you will be asked in the exam to label them. So make sure that you nail this because if you can't label them, you're going to lose so many marks. So I don't want you guys to forfeit marks. I want you guys to collect all the marks. Hey? Now, some parts they're not important, like the anus and the rectum. We're not doing the digestive system. Now, the uterus is very important to know. Guys, the female side view, I know it's complicated a bit, but it's easy to understand if you focus. Please try to concentrate and focus and look at it very carefully. Now, here, this part is what we call the uterus or the womb. That's where the baby grows. That's where implantation occur, you know. Now, here, you know what's different between the male and the female reproductive system is that the urinary bladder here is found below the uterus, but that side is found above the prostate gland. Now, this is the urinary bladder. It stores what we call urine, but that's not important for now. We're doing the reproductive system. This is not important. The urethra is very, very important. This part here. Guys, if you see the urinary bladder and then you see this part here, it's always the urethra. That's where urine passes through and then it goes outside the female body. Now, we're done with the urethra and the womb. Now, we're looking at this is part here. This part here, the part after the uterus that goes down is what we call the vagina. This part is the vagina. It's very important, guys, to know. This is the vagina. And then we have got what the part here, the doorway. I told you about the doorway into the uterus. This doorway into the uterus is what we call the cervix. It was the cervix. And then this part here, it's the vulva. This part here, it's the vulva. This vulva, it's the external genitalia of the female reproductive system. Guys, please pay attention. We have got what? The uterus or the womb, but the scientific term is uterus. And then we've got the cervix, which is the doorway into the uterus. And then we've got the vagina, which receives the penis during copulation. And then we've got the vulva, which is the external part of the female reproductive system. And then what else that you need to know is the urethra here. Guys, you need to know the urethra. But you know, they don't usually ask you about the side view, but because some examiners, guys, they can test you on this, so you need to know this. Now, let's just look at the easiest stuff now. This part is the easiest of them all. This stuff here, it looks like a person. These are hands. This is the trunk of the person. It goes down. This is the head. Now, what you need to know here, you need to know these parts here, these pinkish parts. They are what we call the ovaries. That's where your Graafian follicle or your primary follicles are made. And then after they develop, they form what you call, and they release what you call an ovum, which is it's a female egg cell. Now, there are these parts here. They're like fingers. They're like your hands. These structures, they're called fimbria. Fimbria. I don't know how to call it. It's fimbriae or fimbriae or what. Now, these structures, they are very important because they're the ones that absorb, or they just take what? The egg after ovulation. After the egg is released from the ovary into what? Into your fallopian tube. This tube here is what we call your fallopian tube. We have two of them, the one on your right and the other one on your left. This is my left. Since I'm looking at this left, this is the left part, this is the right part. Now, you don't need to know the infundibulum, you don't need to know the ampulla, you don't need to know the isthmus. They're not important. What you need to know is this part here is the fallopian tube or the oviduct. You need to know that this is the ovary. You need to know the fimbriae. You need to know also this part here. This is what we call the entire part here. It's the uterus. Uterus. That's where implantation occurs, and that's where the baby, the unborn baby, is carried until they are born. And then here we've got the lining. Now, you know, you need to know these linings. They are very important. You've got the part here, the endometrium, the innermost part. You've got this part here. The medial part is what we call the myometrium. And then the external part here is what we call the perimetrium. Now, in science, endo means inside. So this is the inner part, the inner part. In science, also the part myo means muscle. So this part is musculus. It consists of muscles. It's muscular. And then in science, peri means outside, the perimeter. So it's outside. It's the outside structure of the uterus or the lining of the uterus. And then here is what we call this part here. It's what we call the cervix. And then we've got the vagina. But usually the cervix, guys, is here. This is wrong. The cervix is this part here. That's where, or maybe it can be this part, but usually they goes point here. They point here. This is the doorway into the uterus. So that's the cervix. And then this part here, it's the vagina, which receives the penis during copulation, its function. Now, let's look at the functions of the parts of the female's reproductive system. Now, we start with the fallopian tube. The fallopian tube, it's a very important structure. We have two of them, the right one and the left one. Now, this is where fertilization takes place. And then that's where, when the egg is released during fertilization goes to. It's the place whereby, or the location where the ovary releases the egg into. Do you get me? And then it also transports what, the egg cells from the ovaries, and then that's where the fertilization occurs. And then we have got the ovary. The ovary produces an egg cell or egg cells, but it produces one cell per month, not many, one cell per month. So it also produces or secretes progesterone and estrogen, which we're going to describe when we do the menstrual cycle. What you need to know now is that it produces the egg cell, but you need to know these other functions, because you might be asked about what are the three functions of the ovary. You're going to say it produces an egg cell, it produces what, or secretes what, progesterone, and secretes what, estrogen. Two very important hormones. These hormones are very important in the menstrual cycle. Now, we've got what? The vagina. I repeated the vagina twice, guys. Sorry, forgive me. I'm going to go to the one which is very bold. Now, vagina receives the penis and semen during sexual intercourse or during copulation. And now it is the passage through which the baby is born. When somebody is giving birth, that's where the baby passes through, and then the baby goes out. That's how the baby is born. The baby is born through this vagina. The baby passes through the vagina. It receives what? The penis during what? Sexual intercourse, and the semen. Semen contains what? Spermatozoa or sperm cells. These sperm cells, they do what? They fertilize the egg to produce what? A zygote, which develops into what? A fetus, which is the unborn baby. And then afterwards, after the child or the fetus is fully developed, it is taken out of the body through labor. Now, endometrium. Endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus, and it is the place where an embryo implants and the placenta forms. We're going to explain those things, guys, as we move. The endometrium, it's the layer, the inner layer on the uterine wall, the inner layer where implantation. Okay, we're going to describe implantation. I'm going to explain to you implantation when we do the menstrual cycle. Yes, I'm going to do fertilization, the menstrual cycle, yeah, all of them in one lesson. For now, you need to know the parts, the structures of the male and the female reproductive system, the functions of the parts of the male reproductive system, and how to label them. And then we're going to look at the ovary, and then we're going to look at what is puberty. We're going to look at puberty. The cervix, guys. Oh, before I forget, the uterus, it carries the embryo and the fetus to pregnancy, or it carries the unborn baby until the baby is born during pregnancy. And then you've got the cervix. This one is the lower narrow part of the uterus. It stretches to allow the baby through during childbirth. This, as I told you, it's the doorway into the uterus or out of the uterus. So that's where the baby passes through when a woman is giving birth. The baby passes through the cervix, and then the baby goes into the vagina and then outside. Now, let's just look at the structure of the ovary. Guys, you need to know how to label the structure of the ovary, because you might be given this structure and then you're supposed to give labels. What is important here, you need to know that this part, the yellowish part, unfortunately, your exam does not give you colored structures. They are in black and white, unfortunately. But this part, the yellowish part that you can see, is what we call the corpus luteum. You need to know these structures are what we call the corpus luteums, but they're in different stages. This one is the empty follicle. It's the corpus luteum. It's the corpus luteum regress. This one is one that degenerates. This is the corpus luteum when it's fully developed. This one is the empty one. Now, it's actually a follicle, but now the follicle does not consist of an egg. And then you need to know the primary follicles here. Actually, this thing starts here, it goes and goes and goes. Ovulation opens here, and then this corpus luteum is formed. I'm not going to dwell much on that, guys. You need to know the primary follicles, the growing follicles, and you need to know the egg cell, which is inside the follicle, and then You need to know this stage here, which is ovulation, but I'm going to describe it. You need to know a mature follicle. This is a mature follicle. Before ovulation occurs, this follicle is supposed to be mature, supposed to be fully developed before it releases the egg. These ones are developing ones. They're the developing what? Follicles. The primary, the growing follicle. Or you can call them the graphene follicles, but the graphene follicle actually, guys, it's the mature follicle. We're done with this. I'm going to explain further when we do the menstrual cycle. Now, let us just look at puberty. Puberty, guys, you need to know what puberty is. It's very simple. I think everybody knows what puberty is. And you know what happens during puberty. It's just that you don't know the scientific part of it, you know. But what you need to know the difference between puberty in males and the puberty in females. Now, this table, guys, I just simplified everything for you that you're supposed to know. Okay, you need to be able to know or to find the terminology puberty. Puberty is the period in humans in which a person experiences what physical changes in their bodies in order to be capable to be sexually reproductive or to be able to reproduce sexually. Now, puberty in males is different from puberty in females. You know, when you look at the body parts of a female and a male, they're not the same. Males have what? They have a very deep sound whenever they speak, but females don't have it. They have a very soft sound. They speak in soprano. And okay, let me just explain the table to you guys. Now, puberty in males is controlled or stimulated by what we call testosterone, which is something I'm going to discuss with you guys when we do gametogenesis. Yes, especially here, I'm going to discuss it when we do spermatogenesis. Yes, and then the female body, when it's puberty time, the puberty there is controlled or stimulated by the estrogen. Yes, it's stimulated by the estrogen. This is also a very important hormone, which I'm going to describe or discuss to you guys when we do the menstrual cycle. And then we have got the growth of a male sex organs. This testosterone, it enables the growth of male sex organs or the development of sexual characteristics of a male. The very same thing estrogen does is that it grows what? The female sex organs or sexual characteristics. And then this same hormone, it does what? It stimulates the production of the sperm cells, sperm production in the testes, in the male reproductive system. And then this estrogen, it also stimulates what? Menstrual cycle and the production of the ova in what? In females. And then we've got the growth of the pubic hair and the facial hair and the body hair. You know, the pubic hair is the hair in your private part. Everybody has that. Facial hair, mostly in men, but some women do have it because some women, they also have, actually all women, they have testosterone. Hence, some women, they grow beards, but they're not as big as the ones that female and that males have. So now they grow pubic hair, you know, the hair under the armpits and so forth. And then the development of muscles and deepening of what? Of the voice in males. You know, some males, they speak in deep voices, guys. It's not magic, it's the testosterone, which I'm going to explain. And they develop what we call muscles. Hence, men are musculous. Whenever you see them, they have muscles, they're musculous. Yes, they have biceps and triceps that are very developed. And then females don't have triceps and biceps that are very developed. What do they have? They have breasts, yes, and they also have what? Hips. That's what you're supposed to know, guys. Thank you for watching my my lesson, and I hope you understood everything. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm available on Facebook. You can just contact me. I'm going to give you my details, and don't be afraid to ask, guys. Please do not hesitate to ask me anything. I'm going to explain to you, and good luck. I hope you understood everything. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you're gonna watch more videos that are coming to you guys. Thank you so much.